She's the #1 New York Times best-selling author whose young adult books are literally out of this world.
A girl, living with a secret, bound by duty, working to taste freedom.
From a cyborg Cinderella to human beings with amazing abilities, Marissa Meyer's stories are a mesmerizing mashup of sci-fi, romance, and some serious action. While some of her books are set in outer space, she actually writes them from her home in Tacoma.
My beautiful writing studio, it was built by my husband, who's a very talented carpenter.
And I'm curious about what you have going on over here.
Yeah, oh yes.
Whiteboard lover's dream come true over here. What is this?
This is where the magic starts.
The word magic is the process Marissa uses to create compelling characters with their own unique strengths, weaknesses, and deliciously complicated love lives.
Whenever I'm starting a new project, I write up all my scene and chapter ideas on these little index cards and shuffle them around and try to figure out what are my main points, what's my catalyst in the story, what's the midpoint, and eventually it starts to sort of feel like a book, we hope.
She's been in love with books from the beginning.
So what was your first word?
Well, according to my mom, my first 3 words were bath, cookie, and story. And my mom likes to tell the story about how I would come up with these daydreams, and I would tell them to her and make her write them down for me, and so I could turn them into little books.
Then, as a teen, Marissa became inspired to create stories centered around a specific character.
So this is Sailor Moon, a magic girl Japanese anime, and so I wrote fan fiction for Sailor Moon for years and years and years. After college, at some point I started to think, I would love to do this as a job. I love to write. It'd be really cool if I was getting paid for it. And so I started working on original novels.
Then Cinder, the story that would become her big break.
It actually came to me in a dream. I could see Cinderella in her beautiful ball gown running away from the castle, but rather than a glass slipper falling off, her whole foot fell off. And I kind of snapped awake in the middle of the night, and my first thought was that she was a cyborg. My imagination just kind of started to run wild.
So you always hear stories about people trying to get things published, and it sounds like a very difficult process.
Well, I did have about 20 years of writing before that point, so that was, that was the struggle there. But once I did start sending Cinder out, I got my literary agent in about 2 months.
Her debut novel was the first in the Lunar Chronicles series, each work putting a fresh twist on classic fairy tale characters.
So these are heroines, but are they perfect?
They all have fears and weaknesses, and they all struggle with different things in their lives, and you want your characters to feel like they're real people.
After the smashing success of those books, Marissa wrote some novellas and the Renegades Trilogy.
Your newest kind of series, Renegades. This is the first book.
This is the first one.
People went nuts over this. What's the basic plot?
The idea is that it's set in a world in which people have superpowers, and they are called prodigies. And there's a girl, Nova, who has been raised by supervillains, and she is determined to take down this very powerful group of superheroes called the Renegades. But then she meets a boy who is a renegade, and the two of them start to develop feelings for each other, not realizing that their alter egos are becoming arch enemies.
That's some pretty heavy stuff. It's not just like some boy didn't invite me to homecoming. It's like, I've got to save the world.
No, life. And that's part of the reason why I love writing for this age group. They feel so passionately about the world and the characters and what's going to happen. They just care so deeply. And you don't usually get that in an older audience.
The Renegades Trilogy continues with arch enemies and her newest book, Supernova.
Oh, come here, kitty.
It's not just about writing. These days, Marissa also spends a lot of time reading to her adorable twins, Sloane and Delaney.
You're a busy author and you're a busy mom. What do you love about being a mom?
Snuggling. I think cuddles, little girl cuddles are pretty much they make me happier than anything else in this life.
The next chapter of Marissa Meyer's story is still being written.
So as a lifelong dreamer, whose dreams have come true and are coming true, any advice for other young people?
Well, there's so many ways to live our dreams and to be able to spread our passions to the world. But if you love something, then find a way to do it. Find a way to make it part of your life.
Malia Karlinski, Seattle Refined.